Hey guys, it's Bromos and welcome to my YouTube channel. Due to the popular demand, I decided to make another video on figuring out if a stock setup is bullish or bearish. So the format of this video is I will show a random stock setup and have you guys try to guess whether the setup is bullish or bearish. Afterwards, I go over how I would analyze the situation with technical analysis. Anyways, let's get started. So here we have a setup where the stock was at an uptrend for almost 5 months before starting to dip. Based on this chart, do you guys think the setup is bullish or bearish? Pause the video and try to make an educated guess. Unpause when you're ready to hear the breakdown. So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that something's at an uptrend and then goes to a downtrend is a bull flag, which we all know that I'm a huge fan of when it comes to looking for any buy setups. The next thing that I see is that the bull flag landed on a level of support, which is another key feature that I look for whenever I try to buy bull flag setups. So far, it seems like this is a buy setup, but we need to be absolutely sure by checking to see if there are any bearish indicators about this. We can see that a gap below the 50 SMA line with a doji. It managed to close above the 50 SMA with a doji. If it managed to close above the 50 SMA line with a doji, then that would have been better, but the fact that it closed below it is definitely not a good sign, even if it's a doji on a downtrend. Candlestick patterns tend to hold more weight when they're closed over a moving average. Not only did it close below the 50 SMA line, but it couldn't even go back above it and started making a new low, which is something I don't want to see. Still, it's holding that position, so maybe it's not all bad. The bearish candlestick engulfs the doji, which is absolutely something I don't want to see, especially if it's below the 50 SMA line. What this is telling us is there was indecision in the market, but then the bears were like, nah man, we're in complete control now. This couldn't get possibly any worse, can it? Oh, it can, and I'm about to show you. Pause the video and try to guess the last thing on here that I see that makes this more bearish. Unpause when you're ready to continue. The answer is volume. When looking to add on a dip, we want the selling volume to decrease as the price goes down. In this case, however, it's getting stronger as the price goes down, which means that the demand for this is not that strong and people want out. Volume is very important in any scenario because volume dictates what's going to happen, whether a stock is strong or not. That is why I believe this setup is bearish and that this stock should continue to go lower. But wait a minute, Bromus, you said that bull flags are bullish. I did say they are bullish, but sometimes you just can't focus on one thing. You need to look at everything carefully and see if there are more good than bad. Although chart pattern is typically the best factor for deciding if something's at an uptrend or downtrend, we also need to consider how it's being used and if anything is hindering it. In this case, there were many bearish traits and that made me decide that this was bearish despite the bull flag. Now let's see what the result is. It starts to go down. Boo. But we knew this was going to happen. But then it tries to go up again, only once again to get rejected by the 50 SMA line, which is also a strong area of resistance. We're also hitting an area that we were once at before in the beginning of the video, which we considered support. It continues to move down until it gaps below the 200 SMA line and then proceeds to go lower. Let's move on to the next setup. In this next setup, we see that the stock was at a downtrend before bouncing up and down a bit. Based on the chart, do you guys see that this setup is bullish or bearish? Pause the video and try to predict what's going to happen. Unpause when you're ready to hear the breakdown. The first thing that I see is that it manages to break above the descending triangle with strong buying volume before pulling back to before it pulls back a bit to that previous resistance, which is now acting as support. I love any type of breakouts whenever it's followed by strong volume. Not only did it break out of the descending triangle, but it also gapped up above the 50 SMA line, which is another strong bullish indicator, especially followed with volume. It manages to take out some candlesticks while doing so. Keep in mind now that it's sitting on a level of resistance which gives it more strength, as opposed to closing below. However, even if it's closed below, that wouldn't be a problem and I would just wait to buy above the resistance, assuming that I was pretty confident that this setup is bullish. We can also see that the RSI and MACD are also curling upwards. Although these indicators I don't heavily rely on, it's always nice to have extra stuff to confirm with. Now let's see if we can find anything bearish about this stock. The only real thing that I see that's bearish is that it's below the 200 SMA line. However, that is not enough for me to say that this is a bullish, that this isn't bullish, because the bullish stuff outweighs the bearish stuff by a landslide. That is why this is a setup I would take here. I would try to buy if it broke above the high of day. My price target I've highlighted in pink. I would be aiming for around a 33 to 129% gain with a risk of 16%. Because the risk is a little bit higher than I would normally take, I would adjust my position size to risk a certain amount that I'm willing to lose. Now let's see what happens in this scenario. Boom! It continues to move higher with a 289% move. 289% move? You're blowing my mind! Before it starts to pull back. This stock was a great example of buying a breakout with strong confirmation, which also had a nice risk-reward ratio, assuming that you adjusted correctly with a 16% risk. Anyways, let's move on to the next stock. Here we have a stock that's been moving down for quite some time now before having a strong move. Does this move justify that the setup is bullish, or perhaps it's still bearish because maybe it already made its big move? Pause the video and predict whether this will continue upwards or downwards. We can see that it broke out of a bull flag with unusual buying volume. Not only did it break out of a bull flag, but it also broke out of the long-term downward trend, which signals a possible change to the overall direction of the stock. We can see a strong bullish engulfing pattern. For those who don't know what a bullish engulfing pattern is, it's when the current candlestick encloses the previous candlestick in its body on a downward trend. So far, I'm already liking the setup right here, but let's not jump to any conclusions just yet. We can see it also broke above the 50 and 200 SMA line, which is a major flag for me in terms of where the overall direction of the stock is heading. Also, note that the 50 SMA line appears to be curling towards the 200 SMA line, which is a sign that the golden cross might happen. Out of all the lower moving averages going above the higher ones, the 50-200 golden cross is my favorite and usually indicates a stronger move for the bulls. Then we have our RSI and MACD curling upwards. To be honest, I can't find anything really bearish about this stock, so in my opinion, I believe this stock is going to continue to move forward. In this type of setup, I would try to add if it broke its previous high of day, with having my stop loss at around the 200 SMA line, which is about a 7% risk. I know that I mentioned on the slide that I would put a pink line above where the reward is, but I forgot to, and so I apologize for that. But I would try to aim for at least a 14 to 21%, which is basically a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 risk reward ratio. Now let's see what happens. Boom! It makes a 71% move. Note that you could have bought in on the dip when it retraced back to an area of support before it gapped up the next day, and then have your new stop loss at around the support gap area. Even if you didn't buy the dip, you could have made a nice amount on this play. Now let's move on to the next one. Here we have a stock that was moving upwards for quite a while before it starts moving down a bit. Is this stock overall uptrend upwards or downwards? Pause the video and try to predict what's going to happen next. The first thing that comes to mind is it broke the overall upward trend of the stock, meaning that a change might occur soon in the overall direction. It also broke below a level of support. Some of you guys might be thinking, Bromos, I see an ascending triangle here. And you would be correct. It did break a bit below the ascending triangle. The stock also manages to break below the 20 and 50 SMA line, which is a bearish indicator in my book. Now some of you might be saying, don't worry Bromos, I know this is going to continue upwards because I see a bull flag bounce. Well, you are right, there is a bull flag, but notice how it had multiple rejections at the top before going a bit below the flag. This is another example of when not to play a bull flag if you're bullish on a stock. To top things off, we have the bearish engulfing. Is there any hope for this stock? Looks like there isn't because the selling volume on this is just too strong. Okay, Bromus, I'm tired. Let's just move on to the next slide. Oh no, 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 we're not just done yet. There is many more I have to say about this setup. Notice how the RSI and MACD are in a downward trend that looks awfully like a falling pennant, illustrating that the overall trend at this point is bearish. That is why I believe this stock will continue to go down and wouldn't even think twice of taking a position here if I was bullish. Now let's see what happens on this stock. Wah, wah, wah. It tanks like the Titanic with a 30% move down. Some people might think, okay, it tanked, so there's no way it will continue to move upright. I can just keep like shorting, for example, if I wanted to. Well, let's see if that's actually true. Yes, it had a bearish flag, which is basically the bull flag flipped over. However, it broke out the bear flag, which is a sign of strength. Okay, Bromus, fine, that's just one thing. I still don't believe it's going to make a comeback. Well, it also broke above a level of resistance, which is another bullish sign, especially if it can hold it. Also, it managed to close above the 20 SMA line. Fine, Bromus, I guess there's a chance, but I doubt it's still going to happen. I am team bearish all the way. Hold up, it also closed above an upward trend line. Are you kidding me, Bromus? You mentioned that this was a bearish stock earlier, and now you're telling me this is bullish? Like, where did this come from? Well, these things can happen. Okay, Bromus, but I guess we should move on to the next one because there can't be anything else left for you to say. Now hold on. I didn't say that I was done just yet. It also broke out the downward trend of the RSI and MACD. Is that even legal, Bromus? Like, I never heard of this before. Oh, this is definitely legal, so you better get used to it. Now, in my opinion, this stock is currently bullish, but I don't know the end result of this because we're at the latest state, so we don't know what's actually going to happen just yet. I thought this would be a fun activity to do together regardless. Anyways, let's move on to the last stock. The stock is currently at a downward trend. Does anything stand out to you that might make you think, hey, this stock is actually at an upward trend, or is this stock doomed to go down forever into the abyss? Pause the video and predict what's going to happen. Let's start looking for the bullish trades first. I see a double bottom here. However, that is the only thing I see for right now. So let's go and find some bearish trades. We can see a huge rejection at the 20 and 50 SMA line. Even though I said we have a double bottom, upon closer look we can see that this is actually a descending triangle, meaning that a break below this support area makes this stock even more bearish. We can also see that the RSI and MACD are in a downward trend. It also broke below a level of support here. You can argue that there are actually two descending triangles here instead of just one. I think it should be clear to everyone here that this stock is going to continue to move downwards. Like, there's nothing really good about this. Like, if you can name a bullish trade about this, I dare you to ask me. Let's see what happens. Boom! It moves 88% down. If you ever see a stock like this and want to take a long position, then I would highly reconsider it. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below. And if you enjoy my content and see value in it, then feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Anyways, have a great day, friends, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Peace!